report that came out that in one little survey area, we may now have 23% more oil and gas than we thought. So let's add all this stuff up, and if you ask why are we doing this, if you add all this up and we come back and we have $100 trillion, $200 trillion of assets against 36 trillion in debt, what will that do to the 10-year interest rate? I mean, I think it would probably have an effect where people would say, hey, this country road equipment. I mean, I've even seen samples that look as nice as any granite countertop, and they're 30% by weight CO2. So the innovation that can come from solving this problem is massive. But we're not going to get there bankrupting ourselves, chasing a climate extremism ideology that's turned into a giant business that feeds lawyers and feeds funding and feeds organizations around that. We have to just sit back as a country and go, hey, who are we competing with? Who's been successful? Who's bringing manufacturing? Who's generating AI capability? And what do we have to do to do that? And energy policy is not a separate industry. Energy supports every other industry. And energy right now, for AI data centers, we're not like processing health claims or doing that. An AI data center is manufacturing intelligence, and when we manufacture intelligence, that's what allows us to have a successful defense of our country. That's what allows us to cure cancer. That's what it's going to allow us to transform education and healthcare and every other thing that we do. And so, I mean, there is an urgency where we do not have enough power. Because, by the way, China's also opening up 30 coal plants, spending over $100 billion on hydro. We may be ahead of them on the technology for AI. They're way ahead of us in terms of building the horsepower to power that, because this is where you convert a kilowatt of electricity into intelligence. That's never happened in humankind. I think we need to understand that we're at a moment in this planet's history where everything is about ready to change. And so we need to have the humility to understand the revenue from the asset side of their balance sheet. They're going to pay down their debt, they're going to balance the budget, and then we lower the interest cost, and every time we get a click down on the interest cost, that saves everybody that's listening and their children and their children's children. It saves them money because interest cost right now, that's the way. If you want to reduce government spending, reduce the interest rate.
I want to squeeze in one last question. The president's tone on renewable energy has been pretty hostile. And one of your first moves was to kill an offshore project in New York called Empire Wind. There are a lot of people here that are thinking about investing hundreds of millions of dollars in wind, solar, offshore wind projects. Should these people be taking their investments elsewhere to other countries, or can you reassure them of the permits and promises of the U.S. government on the books?
I wouldn't say that there's any hostility towards quote renewables. There's hostility or at least concern about that we've gone too far towards massive tax subsidies for sources of energy that are by definition intermittent. The wind doesn't blow 24 hours a day, and the sun doesn't shine ever 24 hours a day. I mean, solar itself is effectively a system where there's a catastrophic failure every night because there's no sun shining, and then there's no electricity produced. And people say, oh, there's hope for batteries, and yes, there are. But having spent 30 years in tech, I mean, batteries get better at about 2% a year. They're not running on Moore's law. There's not some magical solution that's appeared yet where we could have cheap and affordable load shifting by using batteries in conjunction with intermittent. I mean, maybe there's some incremental solutions, but not at the scale we need, and not at the scale we need when we've got more demand for electricity than ever before than we do right now. And in terms of offshore wind is like 3 times more expensive than onshore. And I can tell you, we're a big wind producer in North Dakota, but there was a lot of sense of, hey, not in my backyard. There's people that don't want wind projects that cover 8,000 acres, that is in their thing. And there's people that live in urban areas that want them all in the rural areas because they don't want to look at them either. And then when you put them offshore, the people on the shore don't want to look at them. And then of course, there's been the whole case around renewables was those were the folks that cared the most about the environment. And there's a report on Empire Wind that was not released by the Biden administration that talks about when you put 2 billion tons of rock in the water, when you put 1,000 foot towers, then all of a sudden you're affecting fisheries, you're affecting shipping, you're affecting the sonar capability of whales, you're affecting a lot of things. And if a report like that had come out against a